Again, it is pure Freudian. I almost said Freudian. It's a spoof on spelling. I left this in hard draft because of this. It's in hard draft, and you know me with language and writing. I love hard grammar. I love metaphoricals. As I was a literature major, believe here, when I was a young guy. Had some beautiful writing professors, and I wrote, including Fawn McKay taught here, who I personally knew, who could be the greatest Western writer in history. She was a professor here, 20 years old. You know, I remember the day she died. I knew her very personally of her family. You'll see, in, well, these videos right here. For decades, I knew this is a Goldman's large fund that all the CEOs called Power in Washington Sachs. Remember this. Remember this. Goldman Sachs Millennium Fund, which my firm used to freelance for. Every single senator, every major congressman, they have their money. You know, if you're worth $10 million, $20 million, you think you just stick it in a bank? Even when the interest rate's 3%? Oh no. Oh no. You have Wall Street firms because of the relationship. Then, it's even more empowered now. They manage your money. How do you think, you know, Bill, who, by the way, don't get me wrong, Bill Clinton, I loved him in a lot of ways. You know, he betrayed us signing NAFTA. That's why I will never forgive him. I think Chelsea got that freaking job. Chelsea spoke right here. I shook her hand. She gave me a little hug. But anyway, and she's a beautiful, incredible young woman. I understand that. But how do you think she got her relationship? And is it shoot the messenger? It is the dynamic of the apparatus that has been created by us, by our baby boomer, ignorant minds. We created this. They're byproducts of this. That's right. Over the past 3 decades, politicians have become very, very rich. Every senator in 2008, except the vice president, who, by the way, is my favorite politician of all time, Joe Biden. I love his wit. He reminds me of my father, his wit so much. He's hilarious. He says whatever he wants. He's got an incredible wit. He don't give a fuck. I love it, you know. And, you know, where the hell his money go? You know, I think he lives life. You know, he's the only one that's not a millionaire. I think that's great that he's vice president. I like him, you know. Of course, I'm like the rest of you. I've been extremely disappointed with the election of Barack Obama. I thought we had a progressive. You know, didn't work out, did it? Of course, we're fucked with every which way we look. He was, out of the 100 senators, the only one who's not a millionaire. Think about that for a while. A vast majority of all, but a major majority, donkey, tiger, or elephant. By the way, up until the 20s, the Democrats' symbol was not a donkey, it was a tiger. I think that's a massive metaphor. The symbol of the Democrat went from the tiger to the donkey. I think it's beautiful. Mariner Eccles right here was a tiger. FDR was a tiger. Teddy Roosevelt, who started out as a Republican, became a president, what a tiger. As he transformed the political system, as he made the Democrats turn into tigers. He was the inception of it. Bobby Kennedy, talk about a bulldog tiger there. John Kennedy, tigers, and we go to donkeys. I think it's a beautiful metaphor. They should change it to a butterfly. I've done videos, you know, I've watched it. Democrats need to change their logo to the butterfly. Woo. And the Republicans should change theirs to the Hair Club for Men guy. Boy, isn't that the truth. I knew this, it was, yes, Sachs who manages their money. Sachs was on the verge of bankruptcy. They were so loaded up on credit default swaps, which was the smart thing to do, by the way. They are ran by a very greedy, smart weasels, Sachs is. They loaded up on those things. They seen the writing on the wall. They knew they could collapse, but it was their own evil step-cousin they created, the IG, that fucked themselves. Of course, then we step out as a government, just fucking bail out. They fucked themselves. He was a very ugly stepson of the created IG who fucked them. So Congress knew of it all. If Sachs goes down, you go down. All of you, and many members in Congress were all in with Goldman Sachs and other big money managers. Remember, Sachs has several funds at a minimum of $5 to $10 million by invitation only. You don't just go into those funds, it's by invitation. All those senators' money, they went behind closed doors and says, look, we're going fucking down. If we go down, you fucking go down. What do you think both sides out fucking lined up? Who do you think gets the invitations? Power, Washington, Power. The same people who over the past 30 years created all the legislation to push you to a 401k so they could get it. That's what the interest rate's all about. The interest rate's to push you to Wall Street so you can't get an investment on your capital return in a banking. There is the fucking, there we go, right? And I've said it over and over. The inception, I can break it down. The inception that caused all this was lowering rates when they should have been raised. It really is that simple. Yeah, the Ayn Rander. Alan Greenspan is the fucking terror. He caused all this. The Great Conservative Movement. In 1980, less than 11% of Americans had money in the stock market. In the late 70s, early 80s, everyone had a pension and great health care via their job. It had been part of the Eccles policies that created the middle class. If an employer did not offer top-notch health care, Blue Cross Blue Shield to name a few, the worker walked and just went across to the next job. We were at full employment all through the 50s and 60s and 70s. Good jobs, very good jobs. Average wages in today's dollars, well over $50 an hour in today's dollars. That is a fact, and it is rerouted closer to $70 per hour. Right here in this town, $106 an hour. I can prove it. In the late 70s, crooks were robbing pensions. Remember, a pension, a simple promise to pay. It was a very few. It was happening to the Reagan robbing pensions. But Reagan, with the help of some Southern Democrats, preyed on if it gave Wall Street the greatest gift in history, the individual retirement plan. Kind of like when W and the far right want to let individuals manage their Social Security, wink and a Palin nod. But Wall Street would manage with a fee. In the early 80s, the 401 cafeterias or kitchens or Wolf was born. The mutual fund matter was hatched. The gravy for all the gravy jobs for the first time was born. You do know very, very few of them work and do not even watch the markets. Mutual fund managers, they don't work. There have been study after study that all funds own the same 10 equities regardless of their character. Now there are great money managers that beat the markets every year in year and year. Our fund did year in, year out. I do year in, year out fucking out. Half for fucking years. But the fact is 80% of all managers underperform the markets by just fewer than 2%. Here is how the scam works. Most 401k though have no idea that the mutual fund industry has been so empowered by Washington they have the right to do what we call putting down the gate. Putting down the gate is when a fund will do if they feel they are having too many investors leaving their fund at the same time. They put down in the gate. In the fall of 2008, and many of you know this is how it works. Funds build a matrix in order to track outflows and inflows, and use mathematics to embed a way to forecast a big run on their funds. Worst case scenarios. They know that the great accuracy how much will leave. They know with great accuracy how much will leave the fund and how much is going to go into the fund. In the future, with amazing accuracy, it has worked for so long. Their forecast models built into their contemporized matrix that they become shorter and shorter on their worst case scenarios. It is like this. Say they have 300 trillion in the fund. They know it is 1 to 3% outflow will be covered by a 1 to 3% outflow percent inflow. So they just say the worst scenario is maybe 10% out and 0% in. Well, the worst case never happens. For 30 years it never happened. So they changed their model to worst case scenario 5% and 0%. Oh, you ask why they care? I will tell you why they care. They play all kinds of trading games with the 90% of the money in between reporting periods, every 3 months, quarter by quarter. By law, it is called window dressing and it is legal. When your statement goes out at the end of the quarter, that is the only time, by law, that the money is required to be put in the equities or bonds. They say it. They are all in. They are not all in. At the end of the quarter, the last 3 days of each quarter, market volumes went up for a very big reason. Good traders knew this and made a lot of money in trading window dressing. Then after the same was generated, right back out. Play all kinds of games with the money. Most fund managers do not even watch the market, let alone trade it. They're on the golf course letting the computer handle this business. The fund managers know 9% of the clients are totally ignorant to the market and have very little clue about the statement. It works like this. The market goes down, so does the fund. Oh, well, the market went down. The market goes up 15%, you make 12%. Okay, you said, why do 80% of all funds, 100% of the market? Why? I will tell you why. Most funds simply buy index packages, SPX, the DIX, etc., spiders, so they do the work. They track the market almost to the percent, but there is a fee in the basket itself for the fee on your fund. So there is a 1 to 2 or 3% the underperform. That is the underperformance. It's the fee. They just simply track the markets. They go sleep on the fucking beaches. These fuckers, it's the greatest job in the world history. My point is this. Why would you buy into a fund that is underperforming? You can buy indexes yourself. Why might if it was exposed? I believe there were lots of very nervous mutual funders out there in 2008. I think there was hundreds of Manos. The difference is this. Under the law, these funds put down the gate and brought time in order to find a way to cover their ass. Some of these funds had to the gate down for months, many months. They got lucky and the panic calmed as many of you have tried to sell, replaced their sell orders with their fund, and only moved back to their bomb position in the same fund. You heard the talk of the breaking the buck. That implies corruption. There were funds, many funds breaking the buck. That means they were lying, period. Breaking the buck is pure fucking fraud. It is pure fraud. And you know, what talk about getting fucking lucky is you all poured into the bond market to fucking try to protect your ass, and these guys got room to cover their ass. There were millions of fucking Madoffs out there. So-called hedge fund industry. They were not hedge funds. There were fucking millions of them. And they fucking got a fucking gift from the fucking, you know, legislative fucking political gods by being able to put down the gate and cover their fucking asses, as a lot of them were going to get exposed. That money wasn't there. Breaking the buck proves that it was not there. That is fucking fraud by law. There is no doubt in my mind where hundreds of Madoffs and still in the mutual fund industry and the so-called fake hedge funds, as I like to call them. 90% of the so-called hedge funds are no more a hedge fund than British Petroleum group of humanitarians. In fact, the average American in the United States has a balance sheet, liabilities against assets, of negative over $100,000. The average homeless person has a balance sheet of zero. He is happier, he is healthier, he has no home. It is true. How can any society prosper that way? They can't. And over their head, working class, poor slaves, low-paying jobs, all manufacturing jobs in what used to be the third world countries employing slaves, children, the old, the sick, no environmental standards whatsoever. And it's okay because of the neo-Americans, out of sight, out of mind, into China, I don't care. They have all exploited the hungry from the South, pay them in cash, it's okay. Again, it is the exploiters' fault. It is the exploiters. It is the American consumer and the exploited. They have been anything from anywhere as long as I is cheap and is okay, it is cheap. The country traded in quantity for quality. We traded in quality for quantity a long time ago. They hired the hair-sprayed up fake cheetahs community, pay no taxes, to build their houses, to mow their lawns, to serve their food to them. Why do they think over the past 15 years, out of the blue, the Mexicans started pouring in? We had no fence for 235 years. Here is why. Not only did the NAFTA hurt the American worker, it hurt the Mexican worker also. 30 million Mexicans in northern Mexico made a living farming and selling produce. Why the single worst nightmare of Washington's many nightmares has passed in 1994, the very first thing the right did when they got power after 50-something years of this guy's power, the progressive powers broke. What was the very first thing they did? And yes, the Republican finance president, like all the other presidents of the past administration, citing the law, Clinton. Remember, what did the first thing they do? Remember, sign NAFTA. Remember, we were called protectionists, and that somehow turned into an ugly thing to be by, again, the neo-ignorant American popular opinion, again, just like they had done for the past 14 years, had something turned politics into religion, and the right lost all rational thinking. It was religion to them, it still is. What the leaders of the right say are good for me is good for me regardless of any logical thinking. They have none. Via the Orwellian mouthpiece of Rupert Murdoch and his machine, they have them all on a leash. They have turned economics and politics purely into religion. They believe without any logical thinking. Here in Utah, the GOP could drop a nuclear bomb on us, which they have done in the past. Go to the governor in the 1980s, Children, Scott Matson, my father, who was nuked to death. Now me. Wow. And I have not read this since I got cancer. I'm reading it for the first time, this chapter. And the state of Utah, who voted for the same, amen again. People would drop the bomb on them. They would say they were being good, and God told me to drop the bomb. They would vote for the very next election as the same as they did for the last, the bomb, because they believe. Because the far right learned a long time ago to turn politics beliefs into religion beliefs. And they have them hook, line, and Kool-Aid sinker. If you have read Scott McClellan's book, Bush's old press secretary, the only one of Bush cabinet that is not currently hiding in their basement, conning Neanderthal Snow Brownie, creeps on a Denver radio, dynamic minds, listen to the music. Music, oh yeah, music, not Orrin Hatch songs. By the way, Orrin Hatch made a record, you know, these weirdos, oh my God, how sick. That's not music, not some slow down rock and roll song called country content. This is not music, not 10 hours a day of Jamestown bullshit on a radio, talk fucking radio, math pieces, Sean Hannity, these fuckers, who can listen to that fucking day in, day out? No, on and on them. Not rubbing our noses, Dick Cheney, who gets away with blatant committing dozens of felonies like outing a CIA agent because she did not agree with the freak's lies? I wonder how Novak explained that one in the afterworld. He's dead now, you know. But of course he did come out before and said that it was Karl Rove, who right here, who I debated right there in that thing many, many years ago. As I say, Carl C with a small c, as his mother intended. He's not from Denver, or not from Utah, he's from Denver. Small 6. Read his ex-wife's book where she says about him. McClellan said they would sit around the Situation Room making jokes about, as they call them, crazy Jesus freaks, the evangelical crazies. Not my words, your leader's words. That one's who you voted for twice, 3 times a lady. They made fun of every people who put them in the office. They would sit around the Situation and make fun of the freaking evangelical, these, you know, just for what I said. They indoctrinated them, ingrained them, and they'd turn them into religion, no logical, and they'd sit around and laugh. Cheney would laugh at you. He would laugh at it. If you don't believe me, read Scott McClellan's book. Here in Utah, I tell Utahns, you do know the GOP is controlled by the evangelical Christians, and they hate Mormons. When Romney ran for president, the Mormon Church came out and made a statement that said, we had no idea the negative views of the Mormons. Remember, I wrote this 2 years ago. We're so widespread in the evangelical community in regards to Mormons. I was like, hello, have you ever been out of Utah or Wyoming or Idaho? There are more far-right Mormons in Idaho and Wyoming per capita than Utah. Wyoming and Idaho have turned, I mean, really, if they had their way, their women would be wearing freaking burqas, and that's no bullshit. That's how backwards those can be. Utah is progressive compared to there. You know, remember Salt Lake City has an open gay mayor right now. So I say to them, how can you support a party who hates you? They just drool and say, oh, that Bobman's a Muslim, more drool. He was not born here. He is a socialist. He is a socialist. Drool, drool. Wow. Wow. The greatest socialistic country in the history of the freaking world from 1945 to 1975 was right here, the United States of America, by that mountain, for the slums of Glasgow. Mariner Eccles, the greatest progressive society, the richest middle class in the history of the world, the greatest socialist in the history of the world. 1945 to 1997, the United States. Wow. Fucking so fucking. He brought some rundown. It is so bad here. I was doing some work for a man named Hal who claimed he was related to me. He is not related to me. He bought some rundown real estate on 22nd Street in Washington. Or he stored a very good old stucco job. Hal Anderson's this creep's name in Farmington, this punk motherfucker. Job for him on an old bank. I saved tens of thousands of dollars for him restoring and replacing 100% of my competitors, which had sold him an unneeded recover. I saved it, just like I have so many. Because it is all the fat, exploited, ignorant minds they know. He made his statement to me that he was glad Teddy was dying of brain cancer, and called Brockmoth's mother's a whore for sleeping with a black man. I was so appalled, big time. Hal Anderson, in the Mormon bishopric, from Farmington, made these statements right to me as I was saving him tens of thousands of dollars. I'm going to get my chance at that motherfucker one day. You have to remember, I am a middle-aged white male in Utah. 90% are neo-ignorant haters, racists, radicals, middle-aged white males. Make no mistake about it. The Utah, the middle-aged white middle class, is the racistest people on earth. Right here, right now. They think I'm one of them. Middle-aged white male living in Weber County. They think I'm a racist. You know how many times I've heard that N-word in the last freaking several years? You wouldn't believe the stuff I've heard out of people out of the Mormon community who are bishopric. For real. For real. Oh, I have some of it on tape. I have state legislators. I have a Weber County commissioner on tape making grotesque racist comments. Well, I'm going to expose it one fucking day. So they assume to me I am one of them. I am not the ivory-billed woodpecker of the coelacanth. Or I am the ivory-billed woodpecker of the coelacanth. That's one of my old lines I've used for years. I'm like an ivory-billed woodpecker of coelacanth. You thought I was extinct. But they caught one off the coast of Madagascar. There's a film of that. They filmed, the Cornell botanists filmed an ivory-billed woodpecker in Arkansas or Alabama. That's me. I'm a white, middle-aged, middle-class male in Utah who's not a Kool-Aid drinking neocon racist. They thought we were extinct, but they found some showing up in the fish markets of Africa, and the Cornell scientists has filmed one of them in the southern U.S., and one has been spotted out in West Weber, restoring a 1905 lath and plaster job to its real status with rocket and lath and plaster. Before I got sick, It's amazing. That job that I replaced in 1885, that fireplace I built out of that ancient prehistoric rock off Antelope Island, those last blades are restored. That's Bob Penman's old house. Bob Penman came from the slums of Scasco with David Eccles, with the McKays, with the Hinkleys. They all timed together. It's ironic that I restored and grew up in that house. I think Bob's presence was on my shoulder as I restored the Masonic Temple hand chisel. They were all came together and they transformed this world from the slums. They all came with the Mormon missionaries together. It's ironic that I end up restoring their places. I think it's their vibe and their power is carrying me. I'm so happy that I was able to do that. Could maybe be the last plaster jobs I ever did, you know. It's my greatest accomplishments. I fell again on the job, attacked by some killer Mormon bees when I was working on this Hal Anderson Racing Preaks house building. I got attacked by some bees. I've never been stung by a bee in my life. These crazy bees attacked the shit out of me. I tell my daughters and broke my wrist and chipped my bone in my hip. I got hurt really bad. I kept working with the cast on my purple hip from my ass to my toes. Ask Will Rogers' great-granddaughter about the purple ass. I had a purple scar on my side all the way down. I was sleeping with that girl every day at the time. You know, her and I had an epic sexual relationship going on. And I had that cast on. I kept working. You can ask Dennis Cook. He helped me, that old brilliant freaking hard worker. You want to talk to him about it? Should have seen that purple scar down me. I casted my own arm, by the way. Dr. Brown at McKay Hospital, who sent me home, refused to cast it because my insurance had been exhausted when I fell off the roof and severed my tongue. The scar across my face. He refused to set my nose, and my uncle said he is the most He is the doctor when I went in with the tumors in my guts, sent me home twice. His name is Dr. Brownie, the emergency room at McKay. He is the most malpracticed fucking doctor in her. I almost died because of his misdiagnosis. Kept sending me home, and you guys know my path. Full of leukemia. Freaking went from 173 pounds to 129 in 3 weeks. Dr. Vincent Hatt stepped in and saved my life. This malpractice motherfucker 3 times on my ass. He, Mr. Howell of Utah, formerly the banker scammer of Tremont, Utah, and Idaho, stiffed me $2,000. This creep, after he made these racist comments, boy, he stiffed me $2,000. That is what kind of scum they are. To this day, coming big time, he is on the top of my list. What a fucking punk. We will cross paths again. The Tea Party was passing out signs at their rallies again, right after the death of Ted Kennedy, which changed the dynamic of the Corps from 60 to 40. Who's going to get his ass kicked? And I said it then when I wrote this book, that I said Elizabeth Warren is, well, I didn't know she was going to run. I says, I'll bet any of you right now, Scott fucking Brown, oh, it's the empowerment of the Tea Party. You fucking Massachusetts fucking morons. Don't ever talked about us fucking Utah's empowered. You fucking elected that fucking, oh, I was in Playgirl. I got beat up by my mom. I was a fucking abused fucking, that's a piece of fucking shit. You elected him and fucking changed the whole dynamic of this country because it went from 60 to 40. It was Scott Brown who bought it. Elizabeth Warren's going to kick her ass, the only true progressive we've had in years. Saying good riddance, Teddy, we're glad you are dead. That is for real. They had signs up all over. Ask James Carville. For real, think about it. How sick is this country? To all those freaks who you ever heard it is called karma. It will get you. It has always shown up, and none of us live forever. Let's see you on the other side. All through the 90s, the neo-ignorant criminals were easily fooled by a falsely stimulated interest rate, and by the any stretch should be raised by the tens, and inflation was off the hook. Inflation went crazy in 03, 04, 05. And the ability of the Ayn Rand science fiction bias to be a mortgage broker and the banker of the break any criminal law you wanted by the free market fairy tales. And even today with a new Justice Department, a new press, and no legal recourse. They all got away with it. I know mortgage breakers right here that should be doing tens of years in prison who made millions illegal and are still in this day in business. Think about it. This is, I have to say, through the 2000 to 2000, I was fine with I had to outwork 5 men. I had to outwork 7. It got hard when I had to outwork 10. I fell off the roof and nearly died because I had to outwork 10 men. I wasn't going to work for no fucking $7 an hour cash. I had to make 70. I had young females to die. I had young daughters to raise. I have had a young person in every thinking way about we are all taught by our coaches, by our church, by our leaders, by our fathers, by our uncles, by our mothers, by our aunts, by our teachers, hard work, honesty, and integrity. So a young man or a woman does Just that in business, says his employees fair, does not cheat the system, pays his fair share of taxes, uses products and methods of integrity, which I did. Appreciates and learns his and her trade of craft and business, educates himself. I spent years in this trade before I went business. They do not all of that, while their competitors pay cash. He cheats with his hairspray, fat hamburger eating, lazy methods. And the consumers, who is the one to blame? Not the government, contemporaries Americans. Like it is just fine because of the neo-ignorant self-indulgence, cannot think past the length of their husbands or their dicks. They fucked you. The ones who with the integrity and the honesty fell. Not only do they fail, your wife leaves you, and then you are shunned by the community because you turn to alcohol or drugs, and you die. You fucking die. That is the American. That is who we are. And you did this. Not any politician. I personally know dozens and dozens and many of young generations who have died, committed suicide right here where I live in Utah. Our suicide and prescription drug overdose, which most of us, those are suicides. It is off the hook and no one cares. Not the church, not the community, not even our own family. It is beyond sick. It is real. That's what comes back to this shirt. As the captain said, which is the way he wants it, well, he gets it. Some men you just can't reach. So you get what we had here last week, is that's the way he wants it, that's the way he gets it. I don't like it any more than you, men. Captain in the 1967 classic Cool Hand Luke. It is now most men and women you just can't reach. That's the way they want it, that's the way they get it. Keep chasing your tails, as the greatest writer of all time said. Riches seem to come to the poor in spirit, the poor in interest and joy. To put it straight, the very rich are a poor bunch of bastards. John Steinbeck. And look now, in all of history, if the man has been taught the killing of men and the evil thinking, not in the counterculture, any man who kills must be destroyed because of this great sin. Maybe the worst we know. And then we take a soldier and put murder in his hands. And then we say to him, yes, it is well, yes, it is wise. We put no checks on him. Go out and kill as many as you could, certain kind of classification of your brothers you can. And we will reward you. We will, because it is the violation of your early training. John Steinbeck. Chapter 11.